Welcome back to the Fallen Giants rebuild here on Super Sammy Plays. After a top 3 finish last season, we're heading into this one with the challenge of balancing both domestic and European football, which didn't exactly go so well the last time we were in the Champions League. We gave a good account of ourselves in Europe before eventually being knocked out in the knockout rounds of the Champions League, but domestically, we were absolutely dreadful with our worst finish since being promoted back to La Liga. So, can we compete on both fronts this time round? Let's get into it and find out. We've spent every season so far relying on cheap transfers and free agents due to a lack of transfer budget. This season, we've actually got a little bit of money to spend, so naturally, we've got new issues from stopping us from spending the money. But first, we've got some contracts to sort out, with goalkeeper Brummans only having 12 months remaining on his current deal, so we offered him a new deal, as well as Mamba, with both signing new 5-year contracts. Fjord and backup keeper Kareem also both just had 12 months remaining on their deals, but when I wanted to offer them new contracts, they wanted more playing time than I was willing to offer, so I left it for now in hopes some time on the bench would change their expectations. Onyeka also got a new deal to keep him happy. Then came the registration issues. With us only being allowed 3 non-EU players and Cups taking up the first of those slots, someone had to miss out if we were to register some of our youngsters. Thankfully, Felipe Guerrero was classed as homegrown, so he could be registered, but Osorio was 6 days shy and Vallejo 4 of them being classed as homegrown, meaning either they'd miss out or Freeman and McCammer would. I weren't exactly sure how it worked, but I registered the youngsters in hope that by the time the window closed, they'd be homegrown and free up those non-EU spots. Freeman weren't exactly going to be an issue either, as he was unhappy, so we loaned him back to Villarreal with a mandatory future fee of just over 5 million. So, missing out on our first game of the season was McCammer, which, to be fair, wasn't a big issue, as we had plenty of striker options to choose from for our opener against Barcelona. But it was maybe the defensive side we should have focused on, as Pedri opened the scoring with a tidy finish after some good work from Yamal. A poor clearance then led to Guerrero getting his first goal involvement for the club after his successful loan spell last season, as he found Manwa to get us back level. But unfortunately, just 60 seconds later, we were back behind again after a long-range strike from Bernal, which ended up being the match winner. Our first home game of the season weren't any easier either, with Real Madrid coming to the Riazor. But this ended up being a dull affair, with the best chance of the game coming in the 53rd minute by the way of a Sesko penalty, which he unfortunately missed. Not exactly the start we were hoping for after how well we'd done last season, but at least things can only get easier. I decided to loan young defender Vallejo to Mallorca for the season with a guarantee of first team football, as well as inquiring about another attacking addition. Our next chance at 3 points was Espanyol, but it was them that took the lead inside 10 minutes before Onyeka thanked me for his new contract by getting a straight red card for a foul on scorer Lozano. Thankfully though, we salvaged a point thanks to a cheeky Sesko chip just after half time in a 1-1 draw. And you might have noticed it was Guerrero who assisted the goal, someone I'm hoping to see produce for the first team this season. Well, he definitely produced against Atleti, winning us a penalty when we were a goal down before sliding a ball through to Gui to get us in front. He then wrapped up his performance and the result by heading home Morgan Fury's cross as we got our first win of the season, beating Atleti 3-1. Unfortunately, Morgan Fury won't be able to help us in Europe along with defenders Bjorknes and Prostegard thanks to more registration issues. This time, our lack of homegrown players coming back to bite us, having just 3 of the required 8 trained in nation. We beat Cadiz in a game which saw Guerrero scoring the pick of the goals and Sesko miss his second penalty of the season. Thankfully, we still won 5-0 before heading into our first Champions League game, an away trip to Brest. Typically, we didn't get the best view of Brest with the stadium mod, but we did at least have decent replays to see Sesko score our second in a 2-0 win. And if you thought all the registration issues were over, well, I'm afraid you were wrong, as I'd waited a little while for Ekatike's wage demands to drop before offering him a contract and eventually signing him, but apparently not long enough, as the 145k we were paying him tipped us over the squad cap somehow, which made absolutely zero sense to me. Without him being registered, we had 175,000 free. God knows, either way, it meant to register him, someone else would have to miss out, and unfortunately, that man was McCammer. The signing hadn't gone down well with everyone though, with fellow Frenchman Thierry Barry expressing his concern. We did also sign Chukwuemeka, Guerrero and Cassidy all to new contracts. With the transfer window now closed and all the admin stuff out of the way, we could fully focus on trying to improve on last season's third place finish, as well as trying to go as far as possible in Europe. And we followed up that win against Brest with another trip to France to play Lille. Fernandez Pardo gave the home side the lead on the half-hour mark before Gui got us back level 7 minutes later. Fernandez Pardo turned provider to put Lille back in front 20 minutes into the second half before Onyeka did the opposite, getting us back level for his second goal involvement. Right at the death, Mamba's cross was cleared only as far as Engels, who eventually crossed to Barry to get us the winner in the 93rd minute, making the scoreline 3-2. Back to the league though, and we're reliant on last minute goals again, with Gui getting us back level in the 88th minute and then ahead in the 93rd, as we beat Rayo Vallecano 3-2. That win meant we were sat in 8th place with a game in hand after our opening 6 fixtures, as well as going on to win all of our fixtures in September. Our winning run looked to be over when Sevilla equalised in the 84th minute to make it 2-2, but for the third game in a row, a 90th minute goal won us the game, Mark Gui saving us again. Ekitike got off the mark in the next game with a tidy volley in the opening minute, followed by goals from Barry, Mambwa and Morecambe Fury in a 4-3 win over Eibar. We were heading into the first Galician derby of the season in perfect form, and it was us that took the lead again, this time through Furchel's header, which was too strong for goalkeeper Moritz. After all those last-minute winners, it was only a matter of time until one went against us, and what a strike this was. Pablo Duran bending one in from range to earn Celta Vigo a point in the 95th minute. I guess that's what happens when you don't put games to bed. I'm sure conceding that goal would have felt like a loss to the players too. Not ideal with Bayern Munich up next. Also not ideal when Gadu got caught on the ball inside 4 minutes, leading to Luis Diaz getting the opener. Musiala then showed his dribbling skills, first going round Engels before cutting back past Andorra and firing into the far corner for Bayern's second. Aslani added a third before Barry got us a consolation in the last minute, with us losing for the first time in the league phase this season. Our next league game weren't exactly easy either, with Sociedad our opponent, but Gadu got us up and running when he was left unmarked in the 14th minute. William Gomez got Sociedad back level in the second half before Chukwuemeka restored our lead just 7 minutes from time. But just 90 seconds later, Zakarian's cross found Oyarzabal, who finished getting his team back level for a second time. Up step Ekitike with a finish worthy of winning any match as we scored another 90th minute winner. We followed that up with another narrow win, this time 1-0 against Villarreal before our next game in Europe. I'm usually a fan of a trip to Portugal, but this one didn't start so well, with us going a goal down in the opening 5 minutes. Chukwuemeka got us back level on the half-hour mark with a powerful low drive from outside of the box. But just 5 minutes later, Samu fired past Brumans to restore Porto's lead and hand us our second defeat in the Champions League phase. We picked up another 4 points from our next 2 La Liga matches, firstly with a big 4-1 defeat of Girona, followed by a 1-1 draw with Racing de Santander. Our next round of European games were an improvement too, as we put 4 past Red Star, followed by another 4 past Ajax, taking all 6 points at the Riazor. Those wins had put us up to third in the league phase table and in a strong position heading into the final 2 games. Between those European ties, we added another 3 points in the league, beating Cordoba 2-0 with goals from Chukwuemeka and Ekitike, before youngster Osorio came to me requesting a new contract, given his emergence in the first team this season. Unfortunately, with squad cap registration rules, we couldn't give him one right now, and he weren't happy to wait until the end of the season. Back to the football though, and we dropped 2 more points with a 1-1 draw against Alaves. Cassidy missed a penalty, which I think is like the 3rd or 4th we've missed at this point, before Mambwa equalised in the 90th minute to earn us a point. Gui and Barry combined for both goals to get us a win against Mallorca, but sadly that would be Gui's last involvement until after Christmas, as he'd picked up a moderate groin strain and would miss the next 4 to 5 weeks. In better news, we'd now gone 15 games unbeaten in the league, and Barry had dropped his concern about his game time after the Ekitike signing. Barry then made sure we didn't miss Gui in the next match at least, as he scored a hat-trick on our way to a 3-2 victory over Getafe before we drew again, this time 0-0 to Osasuna in our final game of the year. Our youngsters were reaping the benefits of all the game time we'd given them too, with Guerrero showing plenty of improvements, as well as Osorio, who was also gaining interest for his performances. We did at least manage to sign Fjord and Karim to new deals with lesser game time expectations. With our squad cap issues and the Ekatike signing blowing our wage budget, we weren't really in a position to be making first team signings this window. Obviously, we're always on the lookout and maybe we'll find a decent youngster, but the main focus will be to turn those draws into wins and get some more consistency into the second half of the season. We started with Captain Cups being named in the North American Best 11 before a run of cup matches. See what I did there? Firstly, beating Lugo in the Copa del Rey before facing Barcelona in the Supercopa. Mamboa squared to Ekatike to give us the lead after just 11 minutes before Onyeka added a second just before half time. And that was enough for the win as we advanced through to the final where we'd be facing Real Betis, who'd beaten Madrid 2-1. Someone obviously expected Barcelona to be playing looking at the fans, but that didn't slow us down as we got the opener just 2 minutes in through an unlikely scorer, Tristan Kramer. We looked to have added a second 2 minutes into the second half, but after a VAR check, it was ruled out with what might be one of the tightest offsides I've seen on this game. There was no doubt in this one though, as 3 minutes later, Engel smashed his header in to get us a second from a corner, and 9 minutes from time, Riazor Morkenfur wrapped up our first silverware of the saved, as he fired past the goalkeeper to give us a 3-0 win. I'm not entirely sure where this trophy ranks in Spanish football, but either way, I was just happy to finally have something to show for our progress so far. We then had another cup game, which we won, beating Amorrieta 2-0 in the Copa del Rey fourth round, with Guerrero scoring the screamer, before facing Barcelona again, this time in the league. Gavi scored the first after 18 minutes before Olmo added this filthy chip to make it 2-0. And just to remind you, Brumans is 6'7" in goal. That goal sparked some life into us though, as just 4 minutes later, Guerrero's through ball found Ekatike, who slotted Bascartia to make it 2-1. And 2 minutes from time, it was Guerrero who got us back level with a tidy finish to save our unbeaten run. Not that we could say the same for Europe, as Chelsea came from a goal down to beat us 2-1. A former Chelsea man, Carney Chukwuemeka, then expressed his concerns about his game time, which weren't going to be helped with this signing, as I'd made an offer for 20-year-old Ibrahim Atayin for just £2 million. We got back to winning in the league though, beating Espanyol with an unhappy Chukwuemeka scoring the final goal in a 3-1 win before our last game of the Champions League phase. That loss to Chelsea had dropped us down to 16th, but still a guaranteed spot in the next round, meaning we went into that next game against Juventus with no pressure, and that certainly showed too as we got our first goal just 4 minutes in when Ndor headed home. Guy then added a second after capitalising on Trevor Chalobah's mistake 2 minutes later, before Guerrero added a third in the 14th minute. Ndor got his second to make it 4 before Guerrero joined him, getting his second 2 minutes into the second half. Conceição pulled a goal back for Juve with some nice dribbling and a decent finish before we wrapped it up, with Guy also getting his second on our way to a 6-1 hammering of Juventus. Definitely our most convincing win so far, especially in Europe. We confirmed the Tyne signing before our next league match against Atleti, which saw 4 goals in the first half and none in the second as we drew 2-2. Then came a situation I don't think I've actually had before, as Inter made an offer for a youngster Vallejo who was out on loan at Mallorca, which I rejected. They then made another offer, which again I rejected, before I continued, and he'd been sold. I didn't even clock he'd sold straight away until I tried to offer him a new contract and the option weren't there. It must have been the final day of the transfer window in Italy because it went from an offer for him signing in literally 13 in-game minutes. We made some good profit, but I was pretty disappointed to lose him. The only good thing was he had a release clause of 26 million, so if we do want to sign him back further down the line, we might be able to at just 4 million more than what we sold him for. On to the Copa del Rey quarter-final, and this one was extra special as we faced rival Celta Vigo at the Riazor for a place in the semis. It was advantageous as Chukwuemeka scored the only goal of the first half to put us in front after 27 minutes, before Tyne assisted for Chukwuemeka's second. Tyne then got one of his own after Bjorknes' effort came back to him before Sesko sealed our place in the next round, adding a fourth in the 86th minute. We followed that win up with another, beating Cadiz 3-1 with a brace from Gui, before finding out our opponents for the knockout round of the Champions League. Turns out we're playing Benfica in the knockout playoff round, and if you've watched my Aberdeen series, you'll know exactly why this worries me. I also had a nightmare with the camera angle, so apologies for the view, but at least you could still clearly see Chukwuemeka score to put us 1-0 up in the 78th minute. It took us that long to finally get off the mark just to concede 5 minutes later, but thankfully we weren't finished, with Barry getting us in front in the 88th minute and Cups adding another in the 95th, meaning we were taking a 3-1 lead back to the Riazor. It looked like we were hitting form at just the right time too, with Chukwuemeka, the star performer, scoring a hat-trick in a 6-1 smashing of Athletic Club. So, with a 2-goal lead and confidence sky high, we were certainly feeling good heading into this second leg. But, like I mentioned, I've been here before against Benfica, twice in fact, so I weren't taking anything for granted. But it took us less than 2 minutes to ease my concerns as Manwë gave us an early lead after Barry's effort hit the post. Things got even better 10 minutes later with Barry finding the net this time, making it 2-0, and we didn't stop there. Ndor added a third from a corner before Barry got his second almost identically to his first. Ekitike added a fifth 8 minutes from time before Shelderup got a consolation with us winning 5-1 on the day and 8-2 on aggregate. I'd hate to be them right now. But to put a dampener on our celebrations, we found out our opponents for the next round, and it was the team that dumped us out of Europe 2 years ago, Paris Saint-Germain. But before we get to that rematch, we had a few domestic games to get through, first beating Vallecano 3-0, including this cheeky chip from Sesko, before beating Sociedad 2-1 in the first leg of the Copa del Rey semi-final. It's fair to say it was a pretty good month, winning 7 out of the 8 matches. However, even with 3 games in hand, we were still 15 points behind league leaders Barcelona, even with just our singular loss so far. We also agreed a new deal with Osorio starting at the end of the season. I think it's fair to say we've got our work cut out to make any sort of league title challenge this season, but with the 2-1 lead heading into the second leg of the semi-final of the Copa del Rey, we've got another great chance at getting another trophy. We've obviously got the massive task of getting past PSG too, but I'm just hoping to see a good performance. With the first leg at home, we needed a good result here to have any chance of progressing through this round, so I was delighted when Barry scored after 15 minutes. Less so when it was ruled out for offside. But not to worry, as Chevalier's tackle on Gui fell perfectly for Chukwuemeka, who passed it into an open goal to open the scoring just a minute later. Barry then looked to have scored, but for a second time he was ruled offside. Usually, this is where we'd rue those missed chances and concede a goal, but not today as Ndor's pass found Gui at the far post for a tap-in to make it 2. And then in the 93rd minute, Barry finally got his goal as he headed home to make it 3 and give us a huge advantage going to Paris. Before that second leg though, we had Celta Vigo to play in the Galician derby, and it was a pretty quiet game with not much in the way of chances. But when Kramer felled Duran, it presented Celta Vigo with a huge one in the 70th minute from the penalty spot. But a great save from Brummans kept the score level, well, for 5 minutes at least, as Swedberg made up for his miss, heading his team in front. But from kick-off, we eventually worked the ball to the left-hand side with Manwë, whose cross to the far post was headed down by Sesko to Toyn, who smashed it into the back of the net and instantly get us back level. And just 6 minutes from time, Casadei's effort came back to Toyn. He found Ekitike for a tap-in, as we turned the game around and took all 3 points in a 2-1 win. So we're heading into that second leg in Paris in good form and a strong position, but this certainly weren't a done deal by any means. And that was never more obvious than when Barcola gave PSG an early lead to cut the deficit to just 2 goals. However, we were up for this one and got back level through Barry just 90 seconds later. But in the 38th minute, Zaire Emery provided again, this time for Reta, who restored their lead and put the pressure on us. Thankfully, that was the last time they beat Brummans though, as we held on to our 4-2 aggregate lead and incredibly progressed through to the Champions League quarter-finals. And who else is standing in our way other than Catalan giants and the reason we haven't won the league yet, Barcelona. But before all that, we had some more domestic games to get through. Firstly, coming from behind to beat Sociedad 2-1 before facing them again, this time in the semi-final second leg of the Copa del Rey. Zakarian gave them an early lead before putting them in front in the tie 2 minutes in the second half. We took our time getting going in this one before Chukwuemeka's cross found Sesko, who turned home to send us into extra time. And just 2 minutes in, Thomasan found Toyn, who finished from close range to level it up on the day and make it 4-3 on aggregate in our favour. Just for good measure, Felipe Guerrero added another to wrap the tie up and send us through to the Copa del Rey final, where we'd be facing Atletico Madrid. We then took 4 points from our next two games, beating Villarreal 3-0 before a 2-2 draw with Real Madrid. Guerrero had backed himself a pay rise, having made 20 league appearances so far this season. Sesco won Best Player of the European International League, scoring 10 in 8, and Peugeot, Mork and Fury had been named in the Next Gen list, sitting in 12th place. And after all that, we were set for our first leg of the quarter-final of the Champions League against Barcelona. With the first leg being played at Camp Nou, it was Barcelona who had the home advantage in this one. But just 22 minutes in, a former Barca youngster got on the end of Mambua's cross to give us a surprise lead, which turned out to be the only goal of the game. We beat Racing de Santander 3-1 in the league before welcoming Barcelona to the Riazor for the second leg. But again, it was us who took the lead when Mambua headed in Andor's corner to double our advantage. We didn't stop there either, with Andor combining with Barry for a goal of his own to extend our lead, before Chukwuemeka headed home to make it 4 on aggregate. Quite an incredible scoreline, that's for sure. But finally, we saw some life from the away side as 2 minutes later, Firmin found Stevens in behind, who pulled a goal back to give Barcelona a chance. Yamal then found Firmin, who fired home in the 62nd minute to reduce the deficit to just 2 goals. But that was all she wrote as we held on to a 3-2 win on the day, 4-2 on aggregate, and a place in the Champions League semi-finals. Not something I expected to be saying this season. The team we'd be facing would be one that had already beaten us in Europe this season in Chelsea, but maybe we'd do better across the 2 legs. We still had 3 games in hand on everyone else in the league, but we were still 15 points behind league leaders Barcelona, so any chance of the title this season was quickly slipping away. We kept going though in hopes they slipped up, scoring 8 goals across our next 2 league matches, beating both Cordoba and Athletic Club 4-1. That led us to our next chance at a trophy with the Copa del Rey final at the Bernabeu against Atleti up next. And it was Julian Alvarez who opened the scoring with the most disgusting dink, taking advantage of an injured Fjord with the only chance of the first half. It took us until the 62nd minute to get back involved in this one, when Engels found Barry, who finished from close range, and then we had a great chance to take the lead when 10 minutes later we were awarded a penalty for a push on Sesco. It was Sesco who stepped up to take the penalty, but not for the first time this season he saw his effort saved. I think that's actually 3 or 4 he's missed now. Into the 93rd minute and just 60 seconds away from extra time, the goalkeeper sends it long, giving us possession. It eventually finds its way to Chukwuemeka, who plays a great ball in behind to find Sesco, who scores a chip of his own, making up for his missed penalty and winning us the Copa del Rey for the first time in this rebuild. Adding this to the Super Copa, we've done a cup double this season. Just a shame the league looks out of reach for a treble. Either way, everyone was delighted with another cup win and our first Copa del Rey since 2002. Having won our first 2 trophies of the rebuild this season, it was already a historic one. But we were still in the Champions League and mathematically still in contention for the league, albeit just needing a massive slip up from Barcelona. But could we make this cup double a treble, or would our season fizzle out? Well, the start we made against Chelsea was certainly positive, with former Chelsea man Gui giving us the lead after 25 minutes. And it got even more positive 5 minutes later when Captain Cups headed Guerrero's corner in, followed by Tierno Barry making it 3 just a minute later. Chelsea finally replied 15 minutes into the second half thanks to Bremen rush into the middle of nowhere, leaving Esteban to head into an empty net. But just 2 minutes from time we restored our 3-goal lead, when Gui put it in at the second time of asking. An unbelievable first leg, putting us in a brilliant position going to Stamford Bridge. And we'd be going into that second leg in perfect form too, as Ekitike netted a hat-trick and a 6-0 demolition of Alaves. The confidence was clear to see too as Onyeka opened the score and extending our lead to 4, 21 minutes into the second leg. Chelsea's quality started to show through though, as Diamondi's pullback found its way to Enzo Fernandez, who pulled a goal back right on the stroke of half-time. Diamondi was involved again, with his cross being turned in by Garnacho, followed by another goal just a minute later, this time from Perez to really get the nerves flowing. With the score at 3-1, Chelsea were now just a goal away from levelling the tie, and Garnacho went for it, shooting from miles out and thankfully for us, only hitting the bar before we got it to safety. Somehow we'd hung on and incredibly we were going to a Champions League final. But who would we be facing? Real Madrid or Arsenal? Of course it was Real Madrid. We'd also been given our budgets for next season with a healthy 25 million for transfers and 130k for wages. Should allow for a decent couple of signings. Still, not as much as I'd like though. Before we start thinking about transfers though, we had a league still to play for. We beat Mallorca 3-0 before dropping points again in another draw, this time 1-1 to Sevilla. Gui then got a hat-trick in a 4-2 win over Osasuna, which left us third in the league with just a game in hand over Madrid and Barcelona. Draws had cost us this season as Barcelona had been crowned champions, having lost 3 games more than us heading into their final game. But on to our final 2 games. Firstly, we put 6 past Eibar with tying score in the last one before a narrow 2-1 win over Getafe in our final game, where Sesko missed yet another penalty. I really should have taken him off them by now. So we ended up finishing second, 5 points behind winners Barcelona, and also 5 points in front of Champions League final opponents Real Madrid. We also relegated Getafe with that final day win. Our single defeat was a new record low for the club, and Marc Gui had won the top Spanish goalscorer with his 18 league goals. But our season wasn't over yet, as we still had one more trophy to play for, an unprecedented Champions League final at the Johan Cruyff Arena against Spanish counterparts Real Madrid. However, just 6 minutes in, Real Madrid got in front with a shot at the near post too strong for Brumans, and the fairy tale game was starting to feel like a nightmare as just 4 minutes later, Madrid added a second when Bellingham's cross was turned in from close range. Thankfully, our top scorer got us back into the game as Marc Gui pulled a goal back with a great turn and finish. But right as the half-time whistle was about to be blown, Madrid restored their 2-goal lead when Bromans was beaten at his near post again. So we headed into half-time fairly even on the match stats, but the all-important scoreline was very much in their favour. We came out in the second half showing intent as Mamba went close, hit the post and it rolling all the way across the line before it was cleared, followed by Sesko heading just over after coming on as a substitute. And it was that man Sesko who gave us a chance as he got onto Tyne's pass to pull the score back to 3-2 with 23 minutes still to play. There wasn't another highlight until the 88th minute, and unfortunately it wasn't for us, as Valverde's shot from range went over into 2 of the 3 minutes added time when we had one last chance, one opportunity to seize everything we ever wanted. And unbelievably, substitute Sesko headed us back level to send it to extra time. The only chance of the first half of extra time fell to that man Sesko again, but unfortunately he shot just wide. So with 15 minutes left, would it be penalties or would someone make a mistake? 116 minutes in and Thomason advanced down the left before crossing towards Sesko, who looked to have been shoved to the ground, resulting in a penalty to potentially win the Champions League. And of course, Sesko was the man stepping up to take it. The same man who'd missed a handful of penalties this season alone. But he made no mistake this time, getting his hat-trick and more importantly, giving us the lead with just a few minutes left, which we managed to hold on for. An incredible turnaround, one I certainly didn't expect, but what a performance from Sesko. To come off the bench and do that in the final was really special. The club's very first Champions League trophy to finish off a brilliant season that saw us win a treble. Absolutely incredible. We'd also set a new goals record for the competition, as well as Mamba breaking the record for assists with 12. Mamba had also set a new record for the most man of the matches, along with being named as Champions League Player of the Season and Young Player of the Season. We also dominated the Dream Team, with 5 of our players being named in it, and incredibly Sesko wasn't one of them, missing out even after that match-winning performance in the final. To add to the good news, we've signed Cups, Thomason and Gadou all to new contracts, and the club finances were looking incredibly healthy, allowing us to pay off a chunk of the outstanding debt. Unsurprising to see Sesko as one of the top shirt sellers too after that final game. Well, what an incredible and unexpected season. I definitely went into this season hoping we'd be able to get some silverware, maybe a Copa del Rey, or maybe even the league title after how well we'd done last season. But to be sitting here as the Champions League winner, having knocked out PSG, Barcelona and Real Madrid along the way, is pretty incredible. Our best season yet by an absolute mile, and definitely a huge step forward in taking Deportivo back to the top. I think it's fair to say we've done that on the European stage, but we're still yet to win La Liga. But to see if that's something we can do next season, you'll have to tune in to the next episode. And if you've enjoyed this one, do me a favour, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.